You're listening to the 95 Podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 95 Podcast. This is Dale Sellers, Executive Director of 95 Network, and I got some home folks with me today. I got one of our teammates, Suzi Steele, and then the man that makes her complete, Tom, her husband,
here we go.
is with me today. And we're going to have a good time talking about an event that happened in their life and life of pastoring. And I just want to kind of find out how they handled all that stuff. But and this is not like thank God, this is not a moral failure report. This is just, something that happened and actually they're still navigating that. But before we do, Tom and Suzi, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
good
Dale.
To be here.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you.
So let's do this before we dive into, and I need to go ahead and just say the church caught on fire. I don't,
there we go. Let's get it
don't want to keep it hanging for 20 minutes. You guys were on vacation and lightning struck your building. That's what we're going to talk about. But before we do all that, so everybody's like, what did Tom do? He didn't do anything. He was on vacation. Before we talk about that, I want to kind of get both of your stories. Suzi has been part of 95 Network for years now. But before we dive, I want to do Tom and then Suzi. Just kind of get a little bit of your overview of your story, and then we'll kind of dive into that thing. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about Tom Steele.
Yeah. So I'm from Iowa kid, grew up and, went to Bible college and really wasn't intent on being a pastor, but started preaching in a little church and God got a hold of my heart and just really felt called into pastoral ministry. And so then began the journey of like going to seminary and things of that nature. And so just kind of stepped up the way people do, I guess, typically. Start with as a youth pastor, then associate, and then got called to Iowa City, Iowa. So Suzi and I have been here at Iowa City Church for 19 years.
Wow.
Just being the lead pastor here, raised our family here, and just have really loved that role, being a pastor, and just loving the people here in Iowa City. So, I mean, that's a quick synopsis. I'm a farm kid. I mean,
you've already answered the big question that I've always had is why do you stay in Iowa? But you grew up there, so you don't understand. There's beautiful places like the South that doesn't have 12 inches of snow in April.
Hey, it keeps the riffraff out. We love it here. The winters can be horrible for a couple months, but the rest of the time is pretty amazing.
Well, I literally saw yesterday a post on Instagram where the Montana State, I think it was their baseball team was practicing in the snow. It was snowing yesterday in Montana. So y'all don't get that, but my daughter lived in Montana for a while, and her first year there, it snowed June 16th. It was like, are you kidding me? And then the next snow was Labor Day weekend. I'm going, that's too much for the Southern boy. But anyway, you answered the question. You've just always been there, and so you don't know what's
always been there. I don't know anything different. So we get four seasons, Dale. We get 4 seasons.
Yes.
You do?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. All right, Suzi, kind of tell everybody your story. You've been a part of 95 Network for a while, but kind of tell everybody a little bit about who Suzi is.
Sure. I did not grow up in Iowa, so I grew up in Colorado, and that's a different experience than Iowa, of course. But I've enjoyed migrating over here. I grew up very differently than Tom with my background and our family situation, not a healthy situation. And so I was kind of trying to figure out my life with where God was leading me, and ended up at the same Bible college as Tom. And so that's why we met. And that's why we lived in Nebraska and then Illinois with grad school. And then we moved back to Iowa, and I've accepted and embraced his home state of Iowa, because now I've lived here more than any state in my life. And so, I love it here. Like he said, we've been here 19 years, working actually toward 20 years, and raised our kids here, and love the people in Iowa City. And it's a vibrant university city that it kind of goes with the pulse of how universities go. And so we're big sports fans. Tom is actually sporting a Caitlin Clark shirt, but you can't see it because it's on his back. But that just shows we are Iowa right here.
So she's one of those people from was Iowa State. Is that right?
No.
No,
In fact,
you need to
Get off
repent right there on
get
that,
off the podcast right now.
She's the Cyclone, right?
University of Iowa.
I
No,
know,
no.
I
Yes,
know.
I
She's a
know.
Hawkeye. Well,
She's a Hawkeye.
it's this following her has been very interesting. This is
Mhm.
Yeah.
that poor girl. I mean, I think she just wants to play basketball.
I
She
think
does.
so. It's all.
It's
Yep.
and
Very
she is
simple.
very good, and she's packing out stadiums and all that stuff. It's really
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
And I know I've seen pictures where you guys have gone and got to go see her play, so that's got to be kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It was a
kind
lot
of
of fun.
setting the stage here. Suzi's been part of 95 Network for several years now. You're our operations director and do lots of behind the scenes stuff, which I'm so thankful for
Yeah.
you. I've told you that a million times, but let me just go on air in front of your husband and say, thank God for Suzi, because
Mhm.
you have made us better.
Yeah.
But you were on vacation, I guess it was 2 summers ago. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You were on vacation, and then you sent out a little. We have a Slack channel that we communicate, and just said, "Please pray for us. Our church is on fire." And I'm like, "What? I thought you were on vacation." So, Tom, tell us what happened. I mean, what's going on there? You're on vacation, and you're in Virginia, if I remember right.
Yeah, we were at Virginia Beach. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was not a revival that was going on.
It
It's
was a
not a fire.
vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to laugh about it now, but
It wasn't
at the
funny
time,
then.
it was very surreal because it happened early in the morning. So we were East Coast time, and I kept getting these phone calls from church people. I'm a youth pastor, and I kept ignoring them. Right?
Yeah,
That's
you're on
what you do
vacation.
I
This is
know.
like
I'm like,
this
leave
is
me
like the first
alone.
few days of your vacation too, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it was getting towards the end, but yeah, they
Okay.
kept calling. I'm like, okay. On the like third time from someone, I'm like, I better answer this. And the first words out of his mouth is like, Tom, the church was destroyed by fire. And it just kind of hit me like, what? You just kind of can't get your mind around that. Anyone that has had a tragedy, it's surreal there for a little bit. And obviously, the first thing you want to do is go back.
Mhm.
But we had a couple of days left of vacation, and so our elders and church leaders, they took care of the service. It was a Saturday morning. And so they took care of the church service on that very next day. They held kind of a service at the property right next door to where our church property was. And so they did an amazing job. And then we were back on Monday just to soak it all in and walk around the smoldering remains. It was wild.
What time of year was this?
So it was June 25th. So we're coming up on 2 years.
anniversary.
2 years.
Exactly. Wow.
2 years ago.
I
Yeah.
didn't even realize that when we set this up. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't
Yeah.
say happy anniversary, but at least
I know, right? Well,
we're discussing
not-
it on the anniversary.
it's fine.
Yes.
The thing is, like, we look at these disasters and whatever, and they hurt for a little bit, but you look at how God can work through them and like,
Sure.
okay, it's
Well,
fine.
I remember Suzi just we talked to you, but you were like in shock in a sense. It was just like, so
Yeah.
how did it affect you when you first got the news?
Well, first of all, I was sleeping soundly, and because it was like 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning, something like that. And Tom came and woke me up, and he goes, "The church burned down." And I was just like, "Is this a dream?" And I don't appreciate being woken up early in the morning
It's
with
true.
such a stupid, whatever. I thought he was trying to prank me. And so, but then his eyes were so big, like deer in the headlights, and he just kept saying the church burned down because he was dazed. And so then I was like, "Oh, you're being serious." And so we woke up, and we kind of it was a fog that day because we were trying to figure out, do we need to find tickets to fly back? What is happening? It was because, we left the church, it was intact. We had been even going through remodeling, and I was part of the remodeling team. And so I just thought, all that work, we just got done doing. And so it was surreal. It was very strange. And then I think what brought it even more is like, they started running it on local news channels, and then it went national. And so here we are, not at the church, but watching it burn down on video. And so that was really very surreal.
So did you start the church, Tom? Did I understand that?
No, I did not. But we had been there obviously for a significant amount of time. So I think we're the longest pastor to be there. Yeah.
So did you inherit that building, or was that building?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And it was honestly, it wasn't an amazing building. We had definitely remodeled it a few times, but it was quirky for a lot of different reasons. But I guess we should get clear as to why the fire happened.
I was going there next.
We had a steeple, right? And it got struck by lightning. And so just go ahead, let all the jokes out, God striking whoever down, or we all have that person that says, if I ever come in a church building, God's going to drill lightning. Well, that person was there evidently.
He must have been there that day.
Yeah.
Or had
but if
been
anyone's looking for a reason not to have a steeple, I mean,
there's a good one.
Another one right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it struck lightning, and I learned a lot about lightning strikes, and it took about 2 hours from lightning strike, and then an ember started in the attic, and then got a breeze going through there, and then it took off like crazy.
And that was that in the middle of the night?
Yeah, it was early in the morning. It was
Okay,
just
so
a
people
ferocious
were not really
thunderstorm.
people were not out and about really.
Yeah.
No, and which was very, very good, because you just never want people in the building or situations like that. So it was but a ferocious thunderstorm. It was people remember it, and there's actually another building that was struck not too far from the church that caught on fire as well. So we weren't the only one actually in the area. So
well, you guys in Iowa are known for some pretty severe weather.
We got wild storms.
Every time I see about a tornado, y'all are the first people I think about. I'm going, man, I hope they're underground. And then and then Suzi, was it April that you posted that you had like 12 or 13 inches of snow? Wasn't that April?
Yeah.
And it's just like you're having spring, and then boom, there it is. So
that's right.
You are known for some interesting weather there. So here's my first thought. So Tom, let me ask you this. So from a spiritual perspective, how do you process lightning hitting your building?
Yeah, well, Dale, this will help qualify it even a little bit better. So this is a true story. Our church people know this story, but we'd been there for quite a long time, at that point, 17 years. We were just coming out of COVID.
I forgot about that.
It was COVID-22. We were starting to get our legs a little bit underneath us, but we weren't, as a church, in a good spot, honestly. And Suzi and I, the night on Friday, we had a talk. We had a walk and a talk in Virginia Beach, and we kind of had come to the conclusion, like, hey, maybe it's time to wrap this ministry up. Maybe this is it, And we really had come to that conclusion. And then the other thing that happened that day, Dale, this was, we can't forget this. It was the day, Friday, the 24th, was when the Roe v. Wade thing came out as well. So that happened all in that same day, on that Friday. So we made that decision, and then Roe v. Wade happened. And then the next day, fire, boom. And then we're like, well, what's God trying to tell us here? So we obviously are very loyal people. We love our people, love our area. And we're like, okay, I guess we're in it. But then the other thing is, everyone was like, okay, was this arson?
Yeah.
And so I had investigators.
Is Tom tired? Is he done? Did he burn the building down? Thank God he was in Virginia Beach. Did you send lightning over there?
I had an amazing alibi. The first person they investigate is the pastor of any church fire. Always. And so where were you? And like I said, good alibi. When was the last time you were in the building? And then do you preach controversial sermons? So they blew up my sermon podcast because they want to listen to everything I did. Like, you preach it on abortion or, whatever.
Yeah.
And nope. So, it was like all these things they're coming through. And so that was wild. And then the other thing is too, most people might be interested by this, but the Agency of Tobacco and Firearms, they investigate every single church fire in the United States. And so there's a picture of ATF agents coming through the remains of our building with their jackets on. So weird. It's so weird, man.
That's got to be
like,
weird.
This is really happening to me. Like, oh, it's so wild.
Well, I just want people not to miss that you had basically decided the night before you were done. You've been there. If things are they're not happening like they need to be happening or like it used to happen, and you guys have had a walk on the beach and made this decision and gotten peace about it. And then this happened. Suzi, what was it like for you?
Well, I remember that walk. I mean, we had grappled with this for many months leading into that particular time where we were walking, and Tom didn't say, but we literally prayed that God reveal to us what we do, what's next. Reveal to us what's next.
That's right.
And we just thought, like, I think our time is done. So that's why we were praying, reveal to us next, what's next. And so, and then you go to sleep peacefully and then wake up to, well, God revealed it all right. And so, and then of course you're not going to leave a church after that. Like, there's no way we could have said, oh, then we're bailing at all, because it was made clear that now that no, God obviously wants us to stay and work through this and get the church to a better place. So
I just want to make sure everybody understands this is not on the far away from COVID. You just kind of came out of COVID, and that was not a good experience. It wasn't a good experience for any of us, but it wasn't really smooth for you guys either. And you had some internal stuff happening in the church.
We did.
Power struggles is the best way to describe that. I just want people to understand this is talking about it now, it's kind of like sometimes we read the Bible now and we don't realize that, those people actually died or that really happened or whatever.
Right.
There was a lot of dynamics. And so, you guys are off trying to clear your head on a family vacation, and then this happens. And especially, what I'd love to hear you talk about, Tom, is what was the transition like from going, okay, I have peace, it's time to leave, and you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning going, no, I can't go now. What was that like?
Yeah. So, you always think about how God works everything for good, Romans 8, I think the problem is what's good, like our definition of what's good. And so in my mind, good was like, well, this is really hard, before the fire, this is hard. We put in the time. I need to move on to something that's more comfortable and, fits my comfort zone, right? Because I think for me personally, I'm always thinking good is comfort and easier or whatever.
We all are that way.
We all think that way, right?
Yeah.
So that happens. I'm like, okay, God, you said good. What's the outcome of this? And what I realized is, like, he had surrounded me with, first of all, I realized how rich of a man I was, in the sense that my phone blew up that day in a way I've never experienced, with people reaching out to me. First of all, I didn't realize so many people had my number, but my phone was blowing up. Because we went to Williamsburg, me and my two kids, and we were, sitting in an old colonial house, and my phone was just blowing up with people I haven't heard from, forever. And they're reaching out to me, and I was just overwhelmed with the amount of friends I have in my life. And what God revealed to me is, like, he just began to pour out blessings of friendship, support. He surrounded me with people that I could talk to. And as Suzi can attest, we were just overwhelmed by that, that's something that we were reminded about. Our ministry and our legacy in Iowa City had bore a lot of fruit. And so through that tragedy, we were reminded about that. But then things got hard, Dale. Like, it literally, I probably got depressed, and because all of a sudden we're meeting on Saturday night.
You probably got depressed. Or you
okay. At first, you're like, okay, we got
Suzi,
money, we got insurance, we got.
Suzi, answer that one for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said he did.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
And I did too, because we came out of a hard place in ministry. We were tired.
You were tired.
You were already fried. Y'all were fried before this happened.
We were fried before the church was fried.
All right, Tom, keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay, so. But as like a pastor, you want to be on mission still. And so to meet in someone else's building. So we, another church down the road, they were so gracious. They let us use their building on Saturday nights, and they were so nice. And so, but what I realized is, like, we're meeting in someone else's building on Saturday night. And literally, as the sun's going down, one of the nights, it was September, there was a football game in Kinnick Stadium. Hawkeyes were playing, getting ready to kick off for a Saturday night under lights, and I'm getting ready to start a church service. I'm like, this is so stupid. Why am I doing? I'm just going down, like, all the reasons of, like, this is not what I envisioned this to go as. But like I said, God poured so many people in my life resources on how to make shifts and changes, and to coach me up and encourage me and pray for me. And so I just leaned into those. And then I left to go to Colorado for 2 weeks too. I had to get off the grid and go up on a mountain for a while.
So you went and chilled out.
I did.
One of the things I want to
Mhm.
clarify. So you said all these people reached out to you. Is this your church family or people outside your church?
Outside church family for sure, but outside, like
Okay.
I have so many pastor friends and just the people we've made connections with over the years that I just realized how big
From
my
all the
circle
places
was.
we've lived.
Small
Yeah.
places, but
Yeah.
our network of friends and stuff, and you just realize like, man, I got a lot of people in my life that
Sure.
care about me. Yeah.
Suzi,
Mhm.
what were you like in that season too? In the same season he was just discussing.
Yeah. Well, we had both been pretty exhausted, and to go into that at first, when a tragedy happens like that, everybody rallies around, and it feels good for the friend support because the same was happening with me. People were reaching out and checking in. My family was checking in, all of those things, and so you kind of ride that high for a while of like feeling that. But then when you are in the church service, and I was doing worship, like playing the keyboard and stuff. And, the way the church building is, it's not like the church that we were meeting in had a great building either. And the windows, they were shining. The sun was in my eyes while I'm trying to play the keyboard, and there's hardly anybody there. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, is this what we've been called to? Like, it was really hard, and it was depressing. And it's like, how are we even going to exist as a church? Is this the end of the church? And so I
Right.
remember kind of experiencing fear of like, this is how we left the church. It's just
Right.
done.
That's
And
good.
so that's what that season was like. Some fear involved.
Yeah, I did have that feeling. I forgot about that. Yeah, I felt like, you forget how thin of the margins are and when you lead a church, it's razor thin, and
Yep.
one thing can tip it one way or the other. And I felt like, yeah, this might be the end.
Yeah.
I literally thought that.
Mhm.
Well, when I
'Cause he's gonna
pastored
stick with
for
us.
the
Go ahead.
small church that I pastored for 12 years, we went through a horrible split in the 8th year.
Mm.
A lot of the reasons for that split was because I didn't lead well, and so that contributed to it. So that stress was on me. But after 12 years, we closed it. It
Mm.
was at a point to where it was not healthy enough to hand off. I wouldn't have given it to my worst enemy, which I
Mm.
hopefully don't have any. But it was not. So you got to know that God told you to close a church when you close a church. You don't close
Right.
because you're
Mhm.
tired. You don't close because you're
Right.
mad. You got to hear clearly from Him that that season is over. And so here you guys are thinking that season is over, and you find out it's not.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And
here's what I
yeah.
want. Let's do this. I want to take a short break, and we're going to come
Yeah.
right back because I want you to kind of dive into what that emotion was like. So we'll take a short break. We'll be right back with Tom and Suzi. We're back here with Tom and Suzi, just talking through the emotions of having the lightning strike at their church building while they're on vacation and burn it to the ground. Wow, that's just it's just an amazing thing to think about. It's like, God, did you see that coming? Well, He did.
Of course.
And see, I relate to what your emotions so much because of what happened to me during my sabbatical. It's like,
Mm.
oh yeah, I'm going on this great sabbatical. I've never been on a sabbatical. It's gonna be awesome. I can't, I have all these visions of grandeur, and it wasn't that at all. So anyway, but so we were just talking about, here you are, and you're processing all this, and you had all the people reach out, and there's this high that comes on the backside of it. But
Mhm.
then the reality of the rebuild begins to kick in. What was that like for you, Tom?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, and everyone needs to do this. I'm just giving everyone a piece of wisdom. And you know this. You need to go around and take pictures of everything that's in your building, because the first thing you're gonna do is what was in your building, what's the contents, and the insurance wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, we had some good pictures taken, some video. Like in my office, even I was taking pictures and getting them as big as I could, see what books I had. So just make sure everyone takes pictures of their contents.
Did you have a copy of Stalled by any chance? Because if you didn't, I'll send you a new one.
Of what? Oh, yeah, I might need a couple. You're right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take care of
I'm pretty sure that was
I
probably in
think
there.
I probably
Yeah.
did.
Sorry.
But that's the first thing is like you have to go into, and thankfully I had some amazing leaders that really stepped in, because you got to keep a church together. You got to pastor a church. You got to find a location. You got to keep doing church. You got to keep doing those. But then you have a whole other piece where you're going through the contents. You're working with the insurance company. Like it's crazy. And so I had so many leaders that even stepped up that I was even kind of surprised at how much they engaged and were so helpful in that process. So that's the first step is just trying to figure out money, content, all that stuff. And just so everyone knows, it's so slow. Like it's such a slow everyone's saying, oh, we'll be rebuilding and we'll be back in a year or whatever. I'm like, no, this is going to take a long time. And, we literally just broke ground, last week. So, it takes forever.
Yeah.
And so you just got to get back on mission and figure that out. And so for me, that's been the mantra, is like, we have to stay on the mission Jesus gave us. Just because we don't have a building doesn't mean we're not a church. We're still a church. So find a location that we could be on mission, and keeping people reminding about the fact that we're not, the church is the people, and really driving that home all the time and just keeping us focused on the mission. That was just so critical for me personally, but I knew our people needed that not to forget that our identity, and everyone who's listening, they know your building becomes your identity, and that's a curse and a blessing.
Yep.
And I know so many pastors talk to me. You would not even believe, Dale, how many guys came up to me and they whisper in my ear, I wish it'd been my building that burned down.
There was real jealousy going on.
There's real jealousy on burning down of buildings. So
and what they're saying also too is they have no concept of what you're working through personally.
Right.
So Suzi, kind of the same season, and I know you have high capacity to take on a lot of stuff. Sometimes maybe you take on too much, but that's another story for another day. But here you are, and you're doing all, and he's going wide open, trying to carry it, hold it together. How was it? What was it like for you?
Yeah, well, you find out who's with you and who's not inside the church, especially. It was a natural kind of weeding out process, because you find out who is your core when you are meeting on a Saturday night and at a weird time. And, most university towns are, the weekend is, people want that weekend for themselves. And so you're not seeing the people show up. And really, there were people that couldn't go the distance. Like they weren't able to go the distance of 2 years. Some stuck with us, but then just couldn't handle that we became a church plant overnight. Like we had to become a mobile church and meet in various locations. We're about to start meeting in our third location now that Tom can tell you about in a little bit. But my emotions were like, okay, this is the sifting of like God revealed to us who we can work with, and basically as a transplant of like we can possibly develop a different culture. Right now it feels like like our culture is just demise or something, because it felt so hard. But inside, Tom and I never doubted what God intended for us in that moment. Like we didn't quibble about, do we stick with the church? Do we not? Like it was cemented the time we heard the church burn down. And so what are we going to do with what God has for us? And what we found is that there's a core of people who that we could work with. Leaders emerged that we didn't see, happening, or some leaders that we didn't realize would be so engaged in it. And so beautiful things actually started happening. The turnaround started really when we could finally get back into a place on Sunday morning. Yep. And so that was, and keep in mind, we're on the far eastern side of the city, very residential. So the place God opened up for us is a hotel that is used by the university all the time. And it's right on the campus. Like University of Iowa is throughout the downtown. It's not a university set apart because they were landlocked for a long time. And so they just buy up what they can.
Yeah.
So we're in the heart of the university, and it is not residential at all. So this is a culture change as well for the people. But we got visibility from people who would have never known about us. And so when we were there, we started gaining traction, not just in people, but traction as in people are doubling down and saying, no, we are the church, the people are the church, and we want to exist. We want to do more than exist. We want to get back on mission and start bringing people to Christ, discipling them. So Tom can tell you a little bit about the change, of course, with that. But
How many
yeah.
people, Tom, did you have? Just so we can have a point of reference. What would you would say was your average attendance before the fire?
Yeah, we're around 120, I'd say.
About 120
Coming out
folks.
of COVID, yeah.
Okay, so
Before COVID, it was more.
Before COVID,
yeah.
it's more than that. But we had,
everybody said amen to that one.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So of that 120, how many of those are still with you?
Our average currently is around 75.
But is it the same people?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, mostly. Now we've added a nice chunk of people too, since we've
I didn't
been
know how many
a
people
new
just
group.
you lost who just said, you know what, I just don't want to go through this rebuilding process. And you find out kind of where their heart is. And I didn't know if you had a mass exodus, a slow exodus, no exodus. I didn't know how that went down for you.
No, I wouldn't say
You
it
were
was a
already
huge
kind of like
mass
not sure if you want to even hang in
exodus.
there before this.
Yeah, no, that's
Mhm.
right. That's right. It's just people are not quite. There's still a core that just aren't there every week because it's downtown. It's maybe out of their comfort zone. So yeah, they just haven't made that switch yet. So
Yeah, and
but we love
at our
it.
lowest, we had about 26 people on that Saturday night that there was
Yeah,
a
those
game.
Saturday nights were horrible.
It was brutal, and we've never been in a church that small by any means. Even the 120 was small, and so it was like, wow, who do we have with us? But there are people that are part of our church. I would say a good third. They've never seen our church building. Because they haven't been with us long enough to be able to see that. And we're used to people live here, 2 to 4 years. So we're used to saying hello and goodbye to people naturally because of that. But but the core has been really about 2/3 of the people.
All right, so Tom, here's pastor to pastor talk. Okay.
Yeah, shoot.
Here you are, dude. You have been there faithfully serving for 17 years. The fire happens. You thought you were going to leave, decided to stay, and then you're working through this, and you have a Saturday night service with 26 people.
Yes.
You got to tell me, how in the world did you work through that? Because every pastor that's ever had a larger church that shrinks, there's massive things that go off inside of us. So walk us through it.
Well, okay. Yeah, I'll make it even worse. I had someone in a wheelchair sitting in the front row, fall asleep, and was snoring very loudly in the middle of my sermon with 26 people there. Yeah, boosted confidence. Let's go. Yeah. That's why I had to go to Colorado, Dale. I had to leave. I just had to get away.
When was Colorado? When did that happen?
September.
Okay, so
September.
This all happens in June, September.
Yeah, so we got into that church building in July, August, and early September. By middle of August, I was done. I gotta get out of here. And so once we had everything kind of under wraps with the insurance and stuff, I just told my elders, I'm like, I gotta go. I just gotta leave. And so I was gone for 2 weeks to Colorado, and I needed it. But what happened in the meantime is we found this new location downtown, with an opportunity to get back on mission on Sunday morning. And so we were able to get back, and in fact, I came right back from Colorado, and we jumped right back in to Sunday morning at this hotel. And man, I was back on it. I really felt like I was rejuvenated, time away, and it feels like we're back on mission. And that was the turning point, honestly, for me.
All right. So what happened in Colorado?
I climbed the tallest 14,000-foot mountain in Colorado. That was one of the things. No, I had some guys with me, some other pastors. So my brother was with me and some other pastors, and that was just such a good time, such an amazing time. I didn't think about church, anything. I just was able to hang out with these guys and do some really hard things, which sometimes, when things get hard, you need to go do something hard just to get your mind off of what's going on. But we had some great talks around the campfire, praying for each other. And so I just really felt filled, like they really poured into me. And I was ready, and then knowing we're going to go back and we're going to be like a church plant now, I was like, okay, we're coming back. We're on mission. Let's go. So that was really a turning point that helped me. And
was this already organized, or is this that you just got some people said, hey, I'm falling apart? Because I want other people to know what they can do if they're in that situation. How did the trip come about?
Yeah. Well, okay. So my long story short, what we've recognized, and this happened before, but my brother is one that spearheaded it. He's a pastor as well. but we just recognize like so many pastors aren't getting away and doing difficult things. In other words, like they're not going and climbing mountains, they're not going and camping, they're not like you got to get away and you got to go challenge yourself, push yourself outside of, what you're doing in pastoring. And so it was my brother's idea. And so when he told me about it, I'm like, I'm in. I need to get off the grid. So we've been doing it. We're going to go again this year. And we just have all these pastors now starting to reach out to us like, hey, can we go along too? I'm like, yeah.
So it's basically soul care.
It's basically soul care.
Mhm.
It's just taking care of yourself and knowing that the church is going to be all right if you're gone. In fact, you probably need to go so your church can figure stuff out.
They can't discover it if you're there all the time.
Exactly.
Suzi, so he goes and
Mhm.
gets all put back together. What did you do?
Well, I was out in Colorado
I think
too.
she was out there with me somewhere.
I actually had to be out there for my other job that I have, a church planning organization. So I was in Estes Park working, but then and then he goes off the grid, and our son, who is also in ministry, lives in Denver, and so I had a great week with spending time with him. So I also, unplugged in that way where I can get away, took a vacation time, and when I'm with my son, we go do stuff together, and the mountains are right there. And for us, the mountains are always calling us, we're not beach people necessarily or anything like that,
Well, I
but
would hope not in
it's
Iowa.
a way. No, can't be. You can't be beach people. So, but yeah, that's what I was doing. And I loved that, Tom, I think you guys have done this for maybe
This will be our
4
third
years,
time.
5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was your third
That was
time
the
or
first
second
time.
time when,
That was my first time.
Those-
2022 was.
Those
Okay.
trips are great, but have you built anything into
Yeah.
your life for a weekly or monthly or anything else like that to help you keep your act together internally, soul care?
Yeah. Well, and I want to give a shout out for spouses. He needs that. I need him to need that, and I need him to do it and follow through because it gives him time to be with people who are his peers. They understand what life is like more than I can in the lead pastor role, and so he comes back healthier. And his re-energizing with ministry just it reflected in our marriage, and so it's like, yeah, I want to be on team rejuvenized Tom Steele here because the church needs the couple to be able to be healthy and do this as a team. And so I just want to let spouses know the healthiest thing you can do for your pastor husband is to have them go off and do that and to make it possible. And because then the pastors that you're married to can do the same for you. Women need to get away and do that too. So,
And to answer my end of that question, Dale, I am doing a sabbatical next year. Once the church's building is built,
Don't
I'm
go to the
already
ocean.
along, and I'm not going to the ocean. I'm doing the opposite of you, man. Going somewhere else. But I am going to do that's the plan for next year is to do a sabbatical. It'll be on my 20-year building done, 20-year, and I've already told the guys I'm leaving for a while, so you're in charge. So,
What about on a weekly basis? Though? Do you do anything on a weekly basis? I mean, thank God you got the trip away, but there's a lot of time between the trip from one year to the next.
yeah, probably not as well as I should. I'll be honest. I'm not super great at Sabbath, so
You're in
it's
the
something
boat.
I
You're in the
definitely
boat
need to
with
work
every
on.
pastor I talk to.
Well, I mean, it's so weird. Seasons of life are so weird, but we're in the empty nest season, and I love what I do.
Yes.
So, but I try to plan in as much downtime, as I can. I like to work out. I like to go and be outside and do things. So it's not like I'm not getting my refreshed time and my time with the Lord, but it's
But what you're telling me
Suzi
on confessing on the podcast is it's not intentional. It just kind of happens when it happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I could definitely
Rich
do
is in
better
a
at
good
Sabbath.
plan.
We're gonna help you.
For
We gotta
sure.
help you. Listen, we do this thing called Soul Care Essentials.
I know. I
And
heard about this thing. It's amazing.
Well, you're just making the point. You've been through such a difficult season, from a theological perspective. Just like my sabbatical, it was kind of like, okay, all right, here I am almost drowning. Jesus, where are you? And he was there. Here you guys on vacation. The building burns down. Jesus, where are you? Well, he's right there. And you found the value of getting away and replenishing and that kind of thing. But if you're not careful, you go ahead, Suzi, you just get in the grind. Yes.
So yeah. Well, when he came back and we started, really pouring ourselves back into our identity as a church. Who are we, and what are we to the community, and things like that. But what happened is we decided to we did the curriculum Rooted, which a lot of people have heard about, but we were able to start a discipleship group by that January, and a small group that was meeting. But then Tom and I also was a part of what's called the Bonhoeffer Project, and it's out of California, but it's a discipleship training that's 10 months. It used to be a grad course, a graduate level course that's taught, and it teaches you how to create a discipleship plan for your church. So we did that together, and usually it's just for lead pastors, but I had to get approval to be in it too, because I wanted to start this with women in the future. So during that 10 months, Tom and I were able to build this discipleship plan that was totally different than, we were hoping discipleship would happen because of the things that we were doing and stuff, but you have to grapple with, why aren't people following Christ closely, and what do we need to change as a church? And so we started doing that, and also was leading this group, and the group of people that God brought into our lives became deep friendships. And if you're in a pastor and a wife, or whoever's the pastor in the family, you don't get deep friendships inside the church. Like this just doesn't happen. And so that was happening through this. And then through this, it was with couples and with individuals. So it was men and women in a group. Then we decided to really get into the discipleship. And I had a women's group, and Tom had a men's group, and a lot of those men were in Tom's group. A lot of the women that were in the previous couples group were in this. So Tom, I just want you to share with Dale how transformative this was to develop these friendships.
Oh yeah. No, our discipleship. So we doubled down on discipleship, which you pretty much have to, because you don't have building and programs and things that you used to do. They're gone, So it gave us this opportunity to reset. And so that we doubled down on trying to be disciple making and create kind of movements. And to do that, you have to have people in your home. So all of a sudden, we're practicing hospitality. We're having people hang out in our homes and other people's homes. And in doing those really basic things, you build these close friendships, and people become more open to sharing their lives and opening up and building those relationships. And really, that's been the most amazing thing through this. Is like, I feel like you actually have close bonds with people that I probably never would have had this not happen. And so that's where that investment has been transformative for us, is we do really feel like we're on a family, probably unlike any other time we've been in the church.
That's so cool. And you've said multiple times in this podcast, we had to get back on mission. And I know both of you are we talk about this a lot. We use the word discipleship all the time.
We do.
We don't do it, but we use the word.
Yeah.
But you guys actually have a true passion for discipleship and doing that. And so when you talk about getting on mission, I'm assuming that's kind of what you're referring to.
Yeah, because what I think our metrics in the church in the West anyway is pretty much gathering people. So we count butts in the seats, and we're like, okay, how many people came to Sunday morning worship, and how much money was given in the offering? Those are our main metrics, but that's not disciple making. That's just gathering people and getting their money from them, right? Which, again, those aren't bad things, but those aren't the main metrics that we see transformation, which the American church is desperately needing. I mean, before we started this recording, we talked about some stuff going on in the American church, right?
Yep.
And what we're doing is we're gathering people into mega churches. And again, I'm not against mega churches. There's places for all kinds of different churches in the kingdom, but are we really transforming people to follow King Jesus, and live in the kingdom? And that takes a lot of work, and that takes time, and that's take investment, And I mean, I might get in trouble with some people on this one, but gathering people and preaching a sermon, you're supposed to do that, right? But it's not the main driver of transformation.
Sometimes it's just about you.
It is. It can be. And I think for a pastor, learning to realize that your sermon isn't the most important thing that you do in a week, which is a big change for me. because I would invest a lot of time in my weekend sermon prep, and now that's way down, but I'm investing more time in relationships and disciple making, which is a huge shift, but that's where you're going to see real life change. But it's a shift mentally. I think a lot of people are trying to figure this out, but our churches in the United States needs this, and I don't know if we have it all figured out, but I think we're at least poking around in the right direction. So,
Suzi, would you say you guys are more healthy now than you were before all this happened?
No doubt. Yeah, so of the 75 that we average, that's actually representative of about 120, 130 people, because like people generally in this area if they do go to church, a regular church attendance is 1 time a month, maybe 2.
Yeah.
So they're averaging 1.5 times, going to church and stuff. And we're above that. But, the truth is people are gone on vacations or things like that. It's an active lifestyle that people live. But of those people, Tom and I counted in the past year that 60 out of the core, like the average attendance. So those are all in discipling relationships in groups. And we actually, we don't have a question mark as to where people are. We actually know where they are. I know that this woman is at this point in her spiritual, decision making, and that here's the next step. And I'm meeting with them. I'm challenging them and loving them, and Tom's doing the same. And then we check in with other leaders about how they're doing in their groups. Where are they seeing growth and change and stuff? And then we started. Tom started using the language of disciple making, like this, all of us. It's not just the pastor, it's not just the pastor's wife or ministry leaders. We're all called to be disciple makers, but how do we equip people to do that? And pastors and those, in leadership, you have to model it by spending your time, like Tom said in the sermon prep. That takes a lot of time. And yes, it's important, but man, we've seen more fruit when he's actually had to limit his sermon prep time. And it's possible, that it's not going to be as polished or whatever, but he's taken that time and poured into people. And I've converted, we worked on our schedules to make time for people, and we're meeting with more people than we ever have been. And that's where the investment is. Like now, when people are gone from the church, the whole church is saying, we missed you. We can't wait to see you, because everybody, has that role. And now we're seeing people wake up in our church of saying, I'm a disciple maker too. That's what God has called me to. I need to follow through on that. So we feel like the temperature in the church toward disciple making is really starting to build that culture. And now we have the healthiest core group that we've ever had, at least in the time that we've been there. And we are the healthiest we've ever been. Yeah.
Suzi, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
What do you think?
Well, I'm talking for the podcast.
I laugh. Oh, I know. I'm an extrovert that has used to be a very, not extreme or anything, but extroversion was always a part of my life. I married an introvert. Tom is.
I was going to ask you, Tom, are you an introvert or extrovert?
Yeah. In fact, we have taken personality tests. We are exact opposites. And so, but doing life together, I've become, I practice more introversion, like the things that maybe come naturally to someone like that, and have appreciated it. And Tom, it's funny, he's an introvert, but he's a social butterfly. My word. Everywhere we go in Iowa, of course, it's like, Tom, he has friends everywhere.
I asked that question because I discovered last year, I did not know this, but surveys say that 70% of pastors are
introverts. Yeah.
And I found that to be very interesting that they're that way. But that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because you're connecting with people and making a difference. So as we kind of go toward the end of the podcast and we wrap it up here, I want to ask you both the same question. And I'll ask you first, Tom, and then Suzi, I'll ask you, what excites you the most about the future?
Well, it hits on just exactly what Suzi was talking about. We are seeing, transformation in a different way. we're seeing life change, and we're seeing people that starting to get the mission of making disciples. And that's so important because actually we're doing a church health assessment. You love this, Dale. Like, so me and some of our leaders, we literally just got done doing a church health assessment, and we're not good, in some areas.
I know somebody can help you with that. So
I know, right? But that's one of the things that I realize is, like, as leaders, we're taking ownership of, like, okay, where are we now? And just realizing, okay, we got to get on mission, because there's some things we're really good at. We're really good at taking care of one another and things like that. But, like, we're not good on evangelism, and we're not good on discipleship. We're not good on doing some of these outreach things. So
sure, you become insider focused. That's the danger of if your whole focus is just discipleship, which is not what most churches do, but you can become very insider focused.
Yeah, you gotta reach out to people that are far from Jesus, and then So I'm excited about the energy that I'm starting to see within our leaders and without the leaders that we're raising up. We're kind of starting to create a pipeline of leaders coming up. I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do these next few years. As we take this, as Suzi said, this new culture that we've begun to develop within the church, and then unleash it in Iowa City. Because honestly, this is a place that needs Jesus. There are not enough churches, not enough Christians. We got a lot of work to do, and that's why we're here.
Suzi, what excites you the most about the future?
Yeah, it is exciting about knowing that God is doing such a impactful change, transformation in our lives, but also in the lives of the church collectively, and that He's preparing us for, like, literally moving back into the building in a brand new space, being like, I don't want to sound cliche, but we have been through the fire together, and
you guys literally
we have been shaped by it. We've been forged in that, and what we're bringing then to the residents of the East Side is complete. In the 2 years, by the way, that we have not been over there, it's had a growth explosion. There are now houses all around. We used to be on the edge of the city. There is a whole population base all there, and they keep putting up new houses and new everything. So we don't know. A lot of them moving in right now didn't know there was a church. They just saw a blank, 5 acres. They didn't know what was happening there. And so that's exciting to know that the seeds that we're actually going to plant there, that, we're trusting God that He's going to plant that. And in the meantime, just July 7th, we meet in a brand new space, and now it's in the actual Memorial Union on the campus of University of Iowa.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we will be right there. And every time we've moved, God brings together even more people that are behind us, and then the people that can just walk in the door, because we've had a lot of just complete, walk-ins. There's a church meeting here. And so it's really, it makes you adaptable. You have to release all the things that brought you comfort before. And it's exciting to see how the church will rise up, even with a new location, until we move back. And, I love it. I'm excited for ministry. And it's like, we're like, okay, God, bring it, bring it. God, don't strike us with lightning. But
you definitely sound like two people who did not plan to leave. So it's just really cool to see this. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today. I feel like this conversation would be very helpful for folks who maybe the building hasn't been struck by lightning and burnt to the ground, but a lot of people's dreams have. And I will say this, and I think Tom still needs to work on it, but everybody listening, you got to focus on a weekly soul care plan. You pastors, you got to quit saying that having Sabbath is not for you. It's not. You're not going to make it if you keep that up, So, but anyway, I'm very happy. Sure. I'm very thankful to see you guys doing so well. And I'm looking forward to, we'll do a podcast in a couple of years just to see how things have been moving along once you get in that new building, which I don't think you'll even care about the new building, because the people is the church.
It's the people, baby. Yeah.
That's
right.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining me.
Thanks, Dale. It was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for asking us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.